can't even talk. Yeah.
That's because you live in an igloo. You're hoping this is going to drop through so you could do some fishing in a minute. Just like Big the cat.
Froggy, Froggy, where are you, Froggy?
Welcome to Book Club.
Except instead of books, it's games.
Oh, and instead of a club, there's us two.
But the rest of the idea is 100% the same.
As every fortnight, we play one game solidly,
Then come here to talk about it.
and we want you to do the same.
All the games are retro.
Most of them are Sega,
Some of them we've never played.
or, we've just forgotten we've played them.
Because we're old.
Because we're old! Because we're old.
Because we're old.
The Book Club has one central theme.
We play retro games for their quality.
Games that deserve to still be played.
There are some bonus old man memories to be had, but you don't need nostalgia if the game is awesome.
We're going to prove it.
In the Book Club.
Hello and welcome to Book Club. We are here today with the wonderful, the sexy, the sexual, the sensuous Dibs Ahoy. Yeah, you.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, you said it, brother.
That's the nicest thing anyone ever said about me.
That's all you're getting. And I am Bedjor, and we're going to dive straight in because we're kind of excited. So, Dibs, my old mucker, what are we talking about?
We are talking about, no beating around the bush here, shushing,
Now,
Sonic
listen.
Adventure on
Now,
the Dreamcast.
You may be surprised to see I finally remembered. Huh?
Well done. Good
We're not
one.
talking about Sonic Adventure 2, but I just
No.
was so excited. I got
But it's very nice to be in the mix, so yeah.
both.
Yeah, so this is my original copy that I got back in the days, Japanese import one.
Beauty.
And this is a launch day PAL one, actually,
Nice.
that I picked up because I didn't know what they were talking about in this version and I wanted to know the story. So I got that on launch day here in the UK.
I'm not being funny. That's probably a good thing, to be honest, because a lot of the sort of storyline and voice acting a little bit ropey. We'll get into it, but I'm just saying. sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes, as with anime, I'll often watch it in Japanese because if you do put the English dub on, it's just a little bit ropey, and it's like sometimes good to just have it. But
Sure.
as if by magic, you kind of directed us where I wanted to start because you were talking about these. You got both right at the start of launch. I'll give it a little. Before we get there, I'll give it a little summary about what we're thinking of covering because certainly we will dive into the fact it was like right at the launch of the Dreamcast in each locale, and it was important to the Dreamcast and why. This was a big change for the Sonic franchise, and it was a big change for gaming, really, wasn't it? It did something new.
Yeah,
we'll
very
talk about
significant.
all the ways it changed Sonic and games. We'll go into the devs. I love a bit of dev chat. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
you gotta talk
Good
devs.
to acknowledge where this stuff comes from.
I think
Doff our hat to these dudes.
if the devs,
Sorry, yes.
I was going to say when the devs watch Gaming for Ages,
Yeah.
if
Big
they didn't-
GFA fans.
if
Yeah.
they didn't get a nod, they'd be crude.
Exactly. They
crushed.
leave us very mean comments.
Yeah.
Very mean.
Oh, very mean comments. So, and we'll talk a bit about the other versions, and of course we'll talk about whether we like it or why we like it or how much we like it, and see the way I sort of frame that question loads of different ways, so no one can guess. No one can keep it mysterious.
Ooh, mysterious, indeed. Yes, I like it.
But
I'm on the edge of my stool that I'm sitting on.
It's going to make a rude joke there, a crass joke.
Yeah,
but
no,
I'm not
don't
gonna
go there. No, I know. I regretted saying that already. Anyway.
I'll save it for afterwards. You can expect
Yeah,
in an hour's time when we finish this podcast. I'm going to make the joke then, and you're going to
yeah.
rue the
There'll
day.
be a return.
So, but let's start at the start of Sonic Adventure and the Dreamcast. It has always felt like a big title for the Dreamcast. It felt like a big title generally. Is a big title for Sonic, it's a big title for Dreamcast. But why? What was the big deal, and how was it a big deal? Tell me your thoughts.
I mean, it was such a big leap. It felt like from it maybe definitely visually, but in terms of what they were kind of putting forward that we were going to get to experience with it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of the Sonic franchise, you know, we'd had, you know, you could be Knuckles, and they did that backwards compatibility thing, so you could put him into Sonic 2 and all that stuff. But this was going to have like a whole load of characters. It was like much more story orientated, and it was kind of like all the interweaving plots and all that sort of stuff sounded very interesting. But I mean, like, when the Dreamcast was first shown off, I mean, like, they showed off those tech demos, like with the face and all the lights going around it and all this sort of stuff, and it like looked really cool. And I remember I was hyped to see what the first games were going to look like. And then the first one I really remember was that Godzilla one, and it was a bit like, because it was like they were really like pitching it. It's like, this is better than Model 3 and all this sort of stuff.
Oh man,
and then,
the better than Model 3 thing. I read people going on about that in 2 different places doing the reading for this episode.
Oh really?
They loved saying it's going to be better than Model 3.
But I was like,
where's my Scud
so
race?
hyped for it.
Anyway.
Exactly. Well, there was the tech demo of it, but they didn't actually show it back in those days.
Nice.
But anyway, so basically I was expecting something really incredible, and I was looking at the Godzilla screenshots and I was like, it's cool, but this is sort of not really what I was expecting and that. And so I was kind of a bit like, oh, once it gets going, what are we actually going to see with this console? But then suddenly they show off Sonic Adventure, and it was like, okay, now we're talking. Because this was like, you know, Godzilla was down here in terms of like the hype level for me, and then Sonic Adventure was just like, I mean, like, if my expectation was there, this was like up here. It was like, it just shot right past it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It looked so good.
Yeah,
it was just
so
incredible.
So much better than we expected, wasn't it? Just
it's just the detail, the lighting, everything. It's just like everything to my eyes looked perfect. And obviously, like, in retrospect, you can see like the characters have, like, you know, all the gaps in the joints and all that sort of stuff. But like, oh man, just when I was looking at those screenshots in those magazines, it was like, it looked like the perfect game. Like, I literally almost couldn't have envisioned it looking better, and it was just, the hype.
It was, and they were going for the hype, and they it's perhaps a rare thing to say about Sega that they were trying to do something on the hype side, the marketing side, the promotion side, that really seemed to work, because we've really got, bearing in mind, we were still massive fans of Sega, but we weren't immune from that slightly jaded sort of feel from the end of the Saturn, and we, you know, the broader public was feeling very jaded or very sort of put off and stuff. And there was this whole thing with Dreamcast, you've got to make a big splash and it's got to be something really special. And I think, I don't remember what we all thought, but I do know at the time I was definitely thinking, I don't know, man, I don't, like, you know, it really felt like they missed the mark, and kind of, you know, although I and we were still a believer in the Saturn, it felt like they were so off the pace in terms of like what the public wanted. I was a doubter, and then this came along, and I was like, oh man,
it course corrected.
Oh my giddy aunt. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing as well, they knew what they had on their hands, didn't they? Like we were just talking beforehand. Was it the 1998 Tokyo International Forum where it was
TIFF?
Yes, where it was first shown off. Did you say there was like 10,000 people or something?
Yeah, and I was just thinking,
am I massively exaggerated?
No, that's the thing. Like, it's good that you kind of thinking that doesn't sound right, because it doesn't sound right, but it was like, so this was their, like, they did an organized launch and invited 10,000 people. I mean, it's just, because I was looking at and they did like a really cracking brochure for it. Like, I was reading through it the other day, well, you know, looking at the pictures, because I don't speak Japanese, but I did a bit of Google Translate and stuff, and it's a great bit of promotional kit and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess, before we kind of dive into like where I was gonna go, it's kind of like our other memories of it, I think just gotta dwell a bit on that leap. You know, you were saying we were so taken by surprise, because you had,
and apparently that was
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so no, oh no, I was just gonna say that was like one of the big impressions that I remember people saying from that conference or whatever it was where they first showed it off, was
Yeah.
like people couldn't believe what they were seeing either. The leap, like from 32-bit to this, it was like, you know, those 10,000 people were like blown away.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I meant. Like Sega knew what they had on their hands and they were going to show it.
Yeah.
And it's like.
They did, and I guess it's two things. It's like what we're expecting from Sonic going into 3D, and what we're expecting from the Dreamcast, and both things are totally like linked up together. But it's like you'd had those attempts to do Sonic in 3D, you know, isometric Sonic, Sonic Jam, Sonic R, and you had, I guess the boundaries of what we thought were possible were set by those things. You know, we'd never seen anything like what the Dreamcast was about to do. Even like PC, like 3DFX stuff, like it just wasn't doing this because it was all, you know, the gloomy dark shades of like Doom and Quake and stuff. And then suddenly Dreamcast came out and Sonic in 3D was so completely more than we could have imagined it was going to be. And then it's like same for Dreamcast. You just thought, oh yeah, Sega doing 3D. Oh god, what are they going to do this time? Are they going to? And they just absolutely nailed it. So yeah,
it was amazing. I mean, it was like, like what you were saying, like with the PC thing. It's like my dad had that completely randomly 3DFS because he was totally not into games and stuff. And I remember we were loading up like Quake and all that sort of stuff on it, weren't we? And it was like, you know, you could look back and see Doom, and then they had these new shinier versions of it with the 3DFX, and it did look good. It had that, you know, was it the anti-aliasing?
And it had the lighting.
I can't say that.
We kept like shooting the RPG down the hallway just to watch the lighting effect of the rocket going down the hallway and stuff. But
then but like even compared to that, Sonic, it felt like Sonic had moved like a whole nother level. It was just like it was something else. It was just incredible.
Because I think we mentioned this in like the last video, but it's just there are two things I can't remember the exact time of it. Two things I remember doing this for, of downloading the trailers off the internet. You know, the Sonic launch trailer, and doing that thing of like doing it on the school computers because we didn't have enough internet. Remember, like back in those days, you had to pay for your dial-up, so it's like downloading a massive trailer was like a few quid or something. So
you had to wait for that Friday night when it would go to 1 p.m. a minute. And
and like, so I do it at school, and then I was like sort of daisy chaining like floppy disk because it wouldn't fit on one floppy disk. So I did it for that and the Phantom Menace trailer and the Tooth. I remember I was really proud to have both of those on my computer, and I was like, it felt like so cool. I kind of owned this thing. But we were saying before, like, it seems funny we do this now, but we genuinely watched that launch trailer for Sonic like over and over again, and it was just so like, I mean, the thing was that we'd obviously seen a lot of you know, CG generated kind of like cutscenes and stuff in the Final Fantasy games and some of the Saturn games and whatever, and you know, that was what I initially went to. I was thinking, is this just like one big kind of computer generated demo? You know, and obviously there's like a bit of that to it, but the game looks as good as that trailer. You know, it's like it's kind of has some big sequences, but things like the killer whale and the bridge and whatever, you're thinking, that was actual gameplay. So I mean, it was the gameplay was like as hype as what they were thrown around in the trailers. It was like, you know, and it was so like on the next level, like all the resolution and everything like that. Like for Sega finally getting some transparencies in there, and they were, you know, chucking those around all over the show, weren't they? Like even like, you know, Chaos, he was like fully transparent. And I read a thing saying like they wanted to make the game like a technical showpiece and stuff, like generally, but they did specifically say they made Chaos to have loads of transparency so they could show it off. Like I
did kind of think that. It was like, finally, here we go. Let's get those full proper transparencies in there.
I think as Meme Machines would say, transparencies ahoy, or even transparencies abound.
Abound, yes.
Yeah, that's a good level of. So I think the other thing was, though, it wasn't just technically amazing. It did change a lot of stuff. And I don't remember when we were first seeing it, us being particularly nervous about the change in the look and stuff. I don't really remember us clocking that or thinking, oh man, Sonic looks different or he looks weird. But it did change a lot of stuff. You know, it was a real reboot of the franchise, and like kind of obviously the big thing in 2D going into 3D at last after loads of like efforts to like move it in there and stuff. But what I mean, we were talking before, what other stuff did they change that's worth mentioning? Because it wasn't just the move to 2D and 3D, which shouldn't be underplayed, by the way. Like that was, you know, we'll get into that a bit more in the kind of talking about design and dev bit of it. But there's a whole bunch to change. So like, I suppose the character. You know, what did you think of the redesign of the character? And it just
looked so good that I sort of like, I was just like, whatever they've done, it's like I'm on board with, because like, you know, there are pictures, aren't there, of like lining up the old character of Sonic with the Sonic Adventure one, and like the proportions are all kind of different. There's like a line going across, like he's a lot taller, because basically I think in the design process they realized that the kind of short dumpy Mega Drive looking proportions didn't quite work well in 3D, so they had to stretch him out a little bit, didn't they? But I mean, like, he just looked so good. I mean, like, I always think of it's actually a screenshot that's on the back of the you see that picture
that's
right
you
there?
That is
that picture there.
So this is Sonic in the temple ruins, like the flames going
and I just remember looking at that and thinking he looks so cool, and it's like all the proportions look great to me. It's just a great looking character, and I was just I was on board with whatever they were doing from that point in, because it looked so good to me.
I mean, I do kind of think things, because, you know, you remember we used to, you more, we used to draw Sonic a lot. Everyone used to draw Sonic a lot. And like, we'd have like characters.
Just drew a little one right in the corner here.
There he is.
You see him?
Yeah. And I think I read this as well, saying when they did this design competition, they thought about, you know, what made him great. I do think they accentuated the right things. The one thing I wasn't sure of at the time, I'm fine with it now, but you know, the sort of this curvy effect they did, you know, where they've kind of made him like all the sort of, he's sort of twisting in some weird poses and stuff in all the promo shots, especially this one on the front. You know, at first I was thinking, oh man, that looks a bit odd. It looked a bit like,
oh really?
Do you remember like Fido Dido? He used to sort of like chuck his limbs around like that.
Thing.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, oh, I'm not sure about that. But then everything else, I think they nailed it. And this was like, I mentioned the design competitions. They ran this, it was a big deal for Sega, because he was like, he was their corporate mascot. He was corporate everywhere. You know, there's always a lot of chat about Japan didn't quite embrace Sonic in the way the West did and stuff. And I just think, man, no, they totally did. Every advert in Japanese magazines for other games had a little Sonic on it. I read a thing saying that their pay slips have Sonic on them and stuff for the like Japanese Sega employees and stuff. You know, he's a big deal. So I don't think we should underestimate how big a deal it was to change Sonic. You know, he was that Naoto Oshima design, and like not just in the game, like everywhere. You know, he was all this branding and advertising based around Mega Drive Sonic was that design. So they ran this design competition, didn't they? And like sort of said, and they got some of their top people on it. So they got this. And I have to read them out because I won't remember the names. So they got Yuji Okawa from Sonic R Sonic. So these are the Sonics that they did. He was the Sonic R Sonic guy. Satoshi Akano, who did Sonic Jam promo art stuff. Don't think it was game Sonic that he made, but he did promo art for it. Naoto Oshima, who was obviously original Sonic legend. Yeah. Nice. Legend.
Worked on Knights.
Yeah, that's it. He's a multiple legend, you might say. Yeah, because he also worked on Knights. And Takumi Miyake, who did Knuckles Chaotix, which I suppose, I mean, probably doesn't get a legend for that, but interesting. So you had intriguing. So you had those four submitted their designs, and they did this internal competition. And Akawa from Sonic R won. and then sort of led the design. But he says in interviews he still took influences from the others. And actually, if you look at Naoto Oshima's design for the competition and generally, actually they seem to have had quite similar ideas. Elongate the limbs, like stretch out the fingers and stuff. The one by I think it was the Takumi Miyake one. I've got the picture. I'll put it on the bottom. It was really weird. It was kind of freaky, kind of something from.
Oh really?
You know that bit in Akira where Tetsuo gets all engorged.
He's mutating and stuff.
Yeah, it looks a bit like that.
Yeah. Oh really?
Yeah, it's weird.
I have not seen this. I need to check this out.
But I guess the point was the character design changed loads, and I think we agreed. I think they nailed it. I definitely think they set themselves up for the next 10 years and so of how we've seen Sonic develop. He could, it's cool that I love the Mega Drive Sonic. He is iconic, but when you saw it, when you see them again in Generations and they're kind of new and old Sonic together, they've both got their place, but they're definitely both cool, and I think they set a good template. You agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. No, I was very happy. Because it was enough like the Mega Drive version with this move to 3D that I was happy with it. And like I say, I was so blown away by everything else that I was very accepting. I was very accepting of him.
Yeah, I do think as well when you put them next to each other in the way Generations does, and just generally. It looks like an evolution. It's not. They didn't scrap it. They didn't start again. They did take the things like his eyes and his trainers and the kind of the bits that make him Sonic, and just accentuated them in the right way. So.
Oh yeah, because this is the first time when they gave him the green eyes, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Before he was just like little black dots, and so I suppose when you're doing pixel art, you can't really. There's not enough pixels to do irises.
I know you can barely get the black bit in, but it was quite interesting seeing that.
But I read that, and I've never really noticed it. Oh, it's kind of obvious once you know to look for it, but I never sort of picked it out at the time or anything. But green eyes. Yeah. Apparently, because he's always seeing Green Hill Zone and stuff, or something like that.
It was something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, I did read that. Yeah, you're right.
The other thing they did was they introduced the adventure bit. So they introduced the would you call it open world? The in-between stages stuff.
So like a hub.
The hub world bit, yeah.
Well, it's kind of multiple hub worlds, isn't it? Because you kind of move around. It's not like one area that you then go off.
What does the game call it? The game call them adventure worlds? I can't remember. Anyway,
I don't know.
I just can think of like myself. Can't even remember the game I played last night.
Ruins. Yeah.
But we started chatting about this before, and we kind of parked it because I thought we better get into this on the podcast. What did you? It was quite a change. So we were saying they did it a bit with Sonic World in Sonic Jam. You had the idea of like a hub world linking like game levels together, but this was obviously just on another level, and it was an actual part of the game. There was storyline in there, the development. Did it work for you? Because this is a leading question because we started talking about this before, so I kind of know your answer right. But for the benefit of the listener, did you did it work?
Well,
for you?
No, I always thought it was cool. It was a good place to kind of get a feel of Sonic's controls and stuff like that. And I like the kind of way that you didn't know what areas are going to open up and stuff. Is it the speed highway or whatever it's called? There was just like a big garage looking thing at the bottom of a building, and that opens up, and you've kind of been used to seeing it the whole time, and it's like, oh, that's there's something else going on there. And and I like the kind of whole thing of the way it all develops. You go down in the sewers and you find all the secret bits and pieces around the place and that to enhance the character. It was it's not it's brilliant. It's not brilliant, I suppose. It's just the main levels are the meat of it all and stuff. But it was just for me it was like a necessary area, I suppose, to let all the story elements and things like that play out. And some of it's really good, when you get into the kind of Mayan ruins looking kind of bits and stuff like that. It's really nice, and the intrigue as well. When you go into that bit where there's the Master Emerald on the on the kind of top of the temple or whatever, and things like that. It was, I just quite liked walking around there and stuff. And
although that bit, I did screw that bit up for myself because I started playing the Knuckles story, and that the sort of the Master Emerald comes up really early in the Knuckles story. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting, and then went back to the Sonic story and got that bit in the Sonic story, and I was like, oh yeah, I've ruined that for myself.
I just really enjoyed it. I thought it worked perfectly well for what it needed to be, I suppose. So. Yeah,
and that's true. And I like the story, and I guess you might guess slightly gonna put a damper on it because I like the story. I guess there's bits of it that I remember jarring with me back in the day that kind of jarred me again this time. One of it is obviously we see the voice acting. So this is the bit where it's in the adventure part of the game where you get the voice acting. And I think Sonic's okay. He's not perfect. His script's a bit dodgy, but he's okay.
He's a gnarly dude, isn't it?
It's a gnarly dude.
He likes a bit of cowabunga and all that. No, he doesn't quite go that far, but
and but you get Tails, who is, I don't know, maybe aimed at a younger demographic or someone who doesn't appreciate good acting. I don't know, he's pretty bad. And obviously Big the Cat, which we'll come back to in a minute. But it's like I think that sort of grated with me a bit at the time. And it's like we were saying when we were talking about Jet Set Radio. The main sort of theme that's playing when you're going around is okay until you get stuck, and then you hear it over and over and over again on a loop.
Okay.
That I'm not going to sing it, but if you can hear it in your head, and it's like, duh, 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 and every time you switch between the various bits of the hub world, it starts again. If you're in a city bit, this is, and it's so every time you go go around that corner and it starts again, and it's like, oh my god, if I have to listen to this for one more minute, I'm going to go insane. So I liked it, and I liked the story, but there were bits about it that grated on me, and I guess it just is also like, I like Sonic because it's just, I'm going to play Sonic, I'm going to blast through it. I love Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. You can literally just pick it up and zoom through it. And Sonic and Sonic 2, you can just zoom through it and you just have fun. And Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic and Knuckles, they kind of started to want to kind of explore a bit more and stuff. And I was like, I just want to zoom left to right. And this was sort of the extension of that. It was a bit like, don't make me faff around in the world. Just let me get on with the zooming around stuff,
I suppose the thing is with it is, after you beat it, you can then go back and then kind of do those zooming bits. I will kind of play the first few levels and Speed Highway and all that stuff over and over again, just zooming through it at that point sort of thing. But when you kind of working your way through it until you then have them just open ready for you to go into at any time. I can kind of see what you mean. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, and also don't want to overplay it. I think when I first played this back in the day, it was just a little bit of the niggly bit and I got stuck. And I think what I'm doing, playing it now, is bringing a little bit of baggage to it. Because other games that do this, like Sonic Frontiers, obviously been another one, that it does have a very good open world. I appreciate what they've done with it. But I also just found it really annoying. There was a lot of running about aimlessly in this massive field and stuff, and I just thought that's a bit harsh there, because some of that is actually quite fun. But
is it? I haven't actually played that game. I'm letting the side down here. There's a Sonic game I haven't played, but
it's like, I don't know. I just sort of thought I sometimes just sat there thinking, am I having fun? I'm just sort of running around this field. Yeah. So I brought that to, and Burnout Paradise was a stupid comparison. It's a completely different game, but obviously it's the same idea. This sort of hub world where you can go and find your missions. I think Need for Speed does it as well on some of the games, and it's like, don't make me drive around like a boring city. Just let me do the main game. Anyway, I'm going to shut up because I don't actually dislike it as much as that all sounds. It just it's a little bit of, and I appreciate the story, and it was good they evolved it, and that was good as well.
I mean, it was I like the way kind of there was a story, like we were saying with the characters, you kind of realize why they're in a particular place at a particular time and what their motives were, and with stuff like when Knuckles attacks Sonic and he's like, what's going on? And then in the Knuckles story, you realize that Dr. Robotnik has kind of painted Sonic's what he's doing in a particular way.
Wow,
it's like, you know, I really like that. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's almost like a Sonic Pulp Fiction or something like that, isn't it? Also, maybe not quite that, but you know.
Knuckles coming in. Any of you sons of bitches move, and I'll execute every. Yeah, no, I think that's true. And actually, I did think that as I started to play some of the other character stories back, and I was like, yeah, I do like the interlocking stories, and that then adds to it. And of course, the other bit to it is you do get those 6 storylines. You do get the 6 versions of the game, and you know, obviously bigger and smaller amounts of playtime to be had, and sort of.
I mean, they were definitely running out of steam, I think, by the Big the Cat kind of section. But
is one of us going to do the voice? I feel like I don't.
You were doing it well earlier.
I just feel like it kind of tells you all you need to know about how bad that voice is. That if I do it, feels like I'm going to insult someone, but it's like, Froggy. Where are you, Froggy? You know, it's like, what are they going for with that? But yeah, run out with this maybe with him. But I do think, you know, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, genuinely very playable versions of the levels that they did with it. And you know, I think obviously they had a bit of that in like Knuckles' original game and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Man, I can't even say the right title if I tried. So. It's something they've done before, is what I was getting at. But
right.
I think you were saying, you know, they'd made these massive levels for Sonic Adventure. Sonic runs through them at such an incredible speed.
Yeah, he just whips right through there. But there's plenty to see, isn't there? And
I want to use this
putting in. Yeah, exactly. After putting in so much effort, and like, you know, and I suppose as well, you know, with when they were researching and getting inspiration, they were taking like really good pictures and stuff like that they then used for textures in the game, and they probably wanted that kind of stuff to be appreciated, like, because they traveled far and wide, didn't they, getting their source material and stuff. So. And
actually, I did you know, the Ancient Ruins bit, it looks cool. I like the music on that bit, by the way. I don't not mad keen on this city, but the Ancient Ruins bit is really cool.
Yes,
it does look really nice. But after I was reading about that, you know, their trips to Machu Picchu and all these places and stuff, and then looked again, I was thinking, you know, it actually does really make a difference that, you know, these things look so good, and you maybe don't appreciate why they look that good. And but that said, it is another story of like devs going on a jolly where you think, you didn't need to go to Machu Picchu to take some pictures. You know,
they had a good old time, didn't they?
We had the internet, mate. You could have just downloaded a screenshot of Machu Picchu and, like, you know.
Although I did see like there was a video I was watching of the developers on that trip, and they were like suffering with like altitude sickness and stuff. They were having like some of them were having oxygen and all this sort of stuff. So,
it's all right. I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's like, I guess I'm wrong. Yeah, because there's a story in that Tokyo International forum leaflet I mentioned about Yuji Naka. Apparently he got like a 39.9 degrees fever or something when he was on the thing, which is like, you know, dangerous fever territory. Again, why am I laughing about this?
I don't know.
It's just, you know, you add it together and it's like, you know, when they did Sega Rally and they were like, oh, we really have to go and like race cars around. Okay, sure. And then like old Yu Suzuki, when he was making Outrun 2, I've really got to drive Ferraris across America. You know, I got to get the feel of this bad boy. It's like, sure.
Needs to be spot on.
Makes you wonder what the developers of Snatcher did as research. Hello. It's cracking onto a bunch of strippers.
Indeed.
Hello. I might quit this YouTube lark and go and be a game developer. I'm sure it's not. But I did, anyway, what we talk about. So the other ability to play as the other definitely works for those three. You know, like Amy Rose, or whatever her name is, she's like...
Yeah.
It kind of felt like it could have been something, but like the mechanics didn't quite work. You know, it's like she's a bit sluggish, and then her hammer jump thing she does and stuff. If they'd have like carried on with that, they could have like maybe got it, but it didn't feel like they did land that one. So
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely felt like it was petering out a little bit. Like, I mean, like Sonic is the main attraction,
Yeah.
then Tails and Knuckles, and it definitely feels like, that's some kind of hierarchy
And it is
or
and
almost
it should be that way.
effort. So yeah. I mean, it was still good, and she had a really good theme tune though. That was sweet, you're so sweet. I think that's like, I mean, that's literally stuck in my head right now. But, yeah. Although the Amy Rose thing, it was quite weird because it was like getting hunted down by like this unstoppable robot.
Oh yeah, like the nightmare sequence thing where it's
it was
actually,
like so they've been watching Terminator or something.
It felt very like a Mario 64 level, and I mean that as a compliment. But the stuff they were doing with like the mirrors showing you like hole gaps in the floor, and like some of the time the controls went in reverse and stuff. And I just thought, this is like quite a cool other take on it. It just, it was good. I didn't dislike it. It just didn't quite land some of the finer bits of it. But I did think, this is quite a cool game. Cool take on the game, rather. But yeah, it was good. I like the fact that it's in there.
There was plenty of variety and stuff like that. I remember back in the day when I got it, like I played through all their stories and stuff, and it just felt like a huge game actually because of it.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's true. It is a big game. Sonic games on the Mega Drive were obviously they were getting bigger, but they were still quick games. And there's a lot of hours you can get out of this, and it's definitely true with the like time attack part of the Sonic Speed stages. They are very, very replayable. I mean, they are. There are some brilliantly made levels in there, and just
really fun.
Yeah. So those are good things. I think the other bit that really did change though is the music. The feel of it. Obviously, moving to 3D was also the move into a new generation. The music kind of did the same, right? It was like you had Mega Drive computer generated music, and then suddenly you had CD music.
They had the whole world available. Oh yeah, I mean, like I liked it because it had the feel of Sonic, like with the kind of chirpy, kind of happy, upbeat kind of songs. But like and I was into electric guitar as well, so when they made it a bit more rocky, I was very happy actually. And actually, one thing that I always remember that I was really into was when on that opening FMV that they do, where they're kind of showing Chaos like coming out of the building or whatever, like the singer. I'm not sure if it's the band Crush 40 or something. I know that there was a band called that on the soundtrack, but I think it was like a mixture of bands perhaps. But the lead singer sounded very much like he was going for his best Lane Staley from Alice in Chains impression. He was really giving it that.
I love to entice you to do the impressions. I got a little bit extra before we started the video. I mean, if you want to give us a rendition, I'm all ears.
Let me try to remember. It's going about so much longer. Something about a one-way track. But it was very like Lane Staley, and I'm just totally not doing it.
No, I thought you did both of them justice. Yeah.
But I was totally like into that because it was so much like Alice in Chains. Well, the singing was like more than the song was like an Alice in Chains song, but you know what I mean. So.
It is a surprising link to find us making, but I do know what you mean. It's like I think the stage music I liked, and I did sort of generally like most of the music. I really, like I say, liked Ancient Ruins, but I must say that one track on the main sort of hub world, for the city.
Right.
Man, that got
that
my
was
tits.
doing you
so
now.
It was doing my crusting, man. Doing my crusting. So, but it was a nice change of direction, and I think, the only thing was like while we were playing this over the last couple of weeks, I did go back and had a game on Sonic 2. Just what you do, isn't it? Every so often you just get the hankering for it. I was playing Chemical Plant Zone, and I was like, man, this is good. And I just thought, it is good.
There are levels there, aren't there?
Yeah, it is good. I do like the fact that it's sort of reinventing stuff. But I think, yeah, it's classic music. It ain't, in my view. It's like, it's just decent. It's kind of a bit like,
Yeah.
it's a bit sort of phoned in, a bit paint by numbers. It's maybe that's a bit harsh, but you listen to actual classic game music, and I just thought, nah, it's not quite that. I like the change of style, but I don't think they quite landed.
Yeah. But I think like a lot of music kind of, past even the Mega CD, when it got to like PlayStation and Dreamcast, like things weren't quite so catchy, and I don't know if that was the era or something like of coming from that more early 90s or something like that towards what you were getting towards the end. But
my theory.
Yeah,
have I ever told you my
What's
theory?
your theory?
I'm going to tell you my theory.
Tell me your theory.
If it's a bad theory, you can tell me. Everyone else, if you think it's a bad theory, you can put it in the comments. I won't be offended. It'll drive the YouTube algorithm. That's fine, whatever. So the theory is this, that obviously up to kind of 16-bit, where you had very limited channels, you had to have a strong melody. That's the theory. It's like you could obviously have a little bit of like bass line, you could have a little bit of sort of rhythm and sort of background, but you had to have a strong melody. And more so if you could like make it with cool instrument sounds like Iizuka would do, but you had to have something really driving the track. And if you have something driving the track, it's more memorable. And if it's more memorable, you've a better chance of it being more classic. So the theory is the limited number of tracks you had in old school game music forced you to just be better, basically.
You know what, like the more like that Street Fighter 2, like that the Street Fighter franchise rather has kind of moved on to these other technologies. It's like the music has just diluted and to the point where those strong melodies of the original Street Fighter 2 and stuff, it's gradually just phased out. Like I think some of the music in Street Fighter 5, I think it was. I'm not actually. Street Fighter 6 is very unmemorable actually musically for me as well. But like I think the Jury theme from Street Fighter 5 was literally, it was almost like just like one chord of synth or something like that with a couple of little things happening. It's like there was like, it felt to me like there was no melody, there was no tune, there was nothing to kind of grab onto. Like if you went to hum it, you had nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, I can kind of relate to what you're saying.
I think it's kind of that
perspective. So.
I've got a theory part 2 for you while you were saying that.
Oh, do it.
Because you said about something to grab onto. It's the other thing is the games have got so huge, there just aren't so many properly defined moments. Like if you think of like obviously levels in the Streets of Rage, you had like sort of, what was it, 7, 8, I can't even remember, but you'd like a limited number of quite short levels, and so a 2 or 3 minute track was perfect. That would be enough to see you through, then you can move on to the next one. When the games are like 40 hours long, you obviously just can't have that much music. And even a game like Final Fantasy, back in 7 or 8, where you had some real big scenes, and like so you'd get a really good moment, you'd have like a Tifa's theme or a somebody's theme, and you'd be like, it would play. Even that's kind of a bit lost because the games are just so big that now like you just would need like 100 of those themes, and you'd need music for 40 hours. And
that would be some serious hours of music.
Anyway, there you go. Random crackpot theories aside.
Good theory, so I like that.
Now there's one other thing that Sonic did in this generation it hadn't done before. Had any game done it before? It was the DLC. You know what I mean? So we talked a little bit about it before, but should we recap? You want to tell us what? Tell us what we know.
Well, I mean, it's like, I guess PCs had like expansion packs and
bloody
even
PCs.
Stuff,
even
like I think before we talked about like the Christmas Lemmings thing, and I kept on attributing it to PC, but actually like thinking about it, wasn't it like on the Amiga or something probably like that as well? But it was like additional discs. But this was my first ever actual. I downloaded something and it's put something into the game, and it was like over dial-up, and it was very small, but in comparison to like the huge things that you can download nowadays for games. But it was it put like Christmas decorations into Stations Square, didn't it? And like we talked before, like about how it put the you had a big Christmas tree, but it blocked some of the path, didn't it?
It's the bit where
it was an essential route.
Yeah, it's when that ID card comes down to get into the little garage door thing that we were talking about before to do, what was it, Speed Highway. And the tree lands on that bit of grass where it is or something, or the tree is where it is. Yeah. But I mean, it's just very cool. They were very keen to push Dreamcast internet connectivity and just...
Yeah, giving it good use and that.
I mean, free stuff. We said it when we talked about this before, but it's like, these were the days where they would use DLC to give you a treat. They were proper freebie Easter eggs. Not like now where it's like we use it to rip you off and patch your game which we haven't finished, and it's like
I mean, I thought it was like amazing. Like I was like, I've literally altered the game just by installing this little thing on my VMU. It's like so cool. I mean, obviously you didn't see the horrors that awaited you further down the line, like what people will try to get away with now. I know. I thought it was going to be used for good. How foolish was I?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Doesn't really apply, Indeed. But wanted to shoehorn it in. So we'll take a massive pivot and we'll go on to the development of the game, because these huge leaps didn't just come out of nowhere. I mean, this was a game like majorly long in the history. I mean, how far back would you trace the sort of what happened with Sonic Adventure, the fact it existed? Because there's lots of kind of start points you could point to. Where would you go? Where would you say the sort of first rumblings of a 3D Sonic came from?
Well, it kind of felt like they were the thought was there, wasn't it? And they were having a little crack with it when they put the Sonic present in Christmas Nights. It was like, okay, what's happening here? I mean there was always rumors of some kind of Sonic game coming out on the Saturn, which we never really got, but it was just to see. I mean, like, if anything, the Sonic, what was it even called in Nights, the Sonic part anyway, was just kind of made
Dreams? Was it Sonic?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, good one. Yeah, but like it just kind of made me think like, Mario and all that stuff is doing it on the N64. Like, PlayStation had Crash Bandicoot and stuff, but for Sonic, the technology wasn't quite there yet for what kind of character he was, like being able to move fast and things like that. It was like, when you were running across the Night's landscape, there was so much like clipping and pop up and all that stuff, and it was sort of like, what I mean, as much as people lament like the Saturn never getting that 3D Sonic game, I sort of wonder what it would have even been like, because I mean, it would have been a car crash. Just call it. It just kind of, you needed the speed. That's the fundamental thing. That is the difference, isn't it? Like we were saying before we started recording, like if you stuck Sonic in a Mario 64 level, he would be at the other side in about like 5 seconds or something like that. But so I think in terms of technology, in a way, as much as it hurt the Saturn, like from an actual gameplay perspective, the Dreamcast was ready to do Sonic justice, whereas I don't think something beforehand probably would have.
Because chuck a theory out there, if they tried it and it had bombed, people talk about the fact that the Saturn era was like, Sonic did go into hibernation and his stock fell and he just wasn't prominent anymore and stuff, and people talk about that being damaging, but you gotta chuck it out there. If they had really gone for it and tried to do a full 3D game, if Sonic Extreme, like in that sort of weird fisheye view they had, the kind of in and out levels they'd done, it was it's more like a Toad treasure tracker thing than a Mario 64. It was, if they tried to do that, or if they tried to do a kind of Sonic Jam style like open world where you can run around, but it just wasn't fast enough and it looked really ropey. Wouldn't that have done more harm? Genuinely.
Probably, I mean, actually, I think a few years ago, Sega actually released a few renders of what they had in mind for Sonic Extreme. This was the one that was going to be on the Saturn, and the screenshots, like, you just couldn't imagine the Saturn having the capabilities to have done it justice. Like there were like far off like bits of land and all that sort of stuff, whereas when you kind of like see the Sonic Extreme like footage and all that sort of stuff, like he's kind of going into the screen and there's so much popping up, and this stuff was way further in the distance than what was even in that game. So it's just like, but in the Dreamcast, it could do that. It's like you can see the stuff that's far off, and so like again, like when I saw it, it did make me think that was right to have that game on the Dreamcast. And and actually as well, if we'd have got a Sonic game, like what would have Knights become? And it's like I couldn't imagine a world without Knights, because that's probably my favorite game, even above any Sonics, really. So.
And you wonder, like, what was that thinking? So the famous story, you've got the bit in Knights where like there's a bit of Sonic running around, so that was a bit of 3D. You had this sort of rumbling constantly about Sonic Extreme, and so the stories go, if I understand it, that they had this team working on it at Sega Technical Institute, wasn't it? I think it was like over in the States trying to put this thing together, and they had initially they had this team trying to build it, and they were building it on PC and saying we'll work it out for how it gets on Saturn later. And then they kind of splintered off, and there were two teams, and this other team was saying, no, we're going to take what you're doing and we're going to start doing it on Saturn now and see if you can do it. And then so that sort of split team caused it loads of problems. And then who was it? Nakayama, I want to say, kind of someone saw it and said pull the plug. And then the Saturn team was saying, well, if we just had the Knights engine, we could do it.
Yeah.
And then Yuji Naka was like,
he refused. Yeah.
Was it that he threatened to quit? He said, if you let that team use my Knights engine, I'm quitting Sega or something like that. And it was like,
oh, I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, he wasn't happy about them having it for whatever reason.
He was mightily cheesed. So you just like, but it's like you say, he saw it and said, no, I just don't. We've got something really good in Knights. I just don't want you sort of trying to force a Sonic game into this. Just if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're not doing it. But then, development. So you had Sonic Extreme, didn't work. You had a bit that sort of demo idea of Sonic in Knights, sort of not really the mechanics. They talk about Sonic Jam and the world bit in there as being that was their first tinkering. And so the bits I've read generally say they did start the Project Sonic, what would become Sonic Adventure, on the Dreamcast, on the Saturn, and then they used bits of what they'd created to do that overworld. But they basically realised what we've been saying, which was, we just can't do it. It's what we want to do with this game just can't happen on this machine. It was just too limited.
Yeah, I mean, they had to kind of Sonic was a lot slower, wasn't he, in the Sonic World bit, and the camera would kind of like tilt. It would almost kind of like go above him and tilt down slightly, almost kind of like, I don't know. I wondered at the time if they were trying to restrict the how far you could see.
They were. Yeah,
to kind of master any pop-up and all that stuff, even though they actually did a really good job. There's not like a heck of a lot of like pop-up or clipping in that bit. It is quite
I thought it does look pretty solid
area. Solid. That's what I was going to say.
Solid, but uninspiring maybe. It's like, it's kind of solid. It's probably where I'd stop it.
I mean, it was definitely a progress, wasn't it, over what you'd experienced in Knights and things like that. It was like they were heading in a direction, and you were kind of like getting a feel for Sonic in 3D. Because I did always used to like, when we played like Mario 64, I would wonder what Sonic would feel like in 3D. I was kind of running him around and stuff like that, and being like, now imagine he's way faster and all that sort of stuff. It's like, what would Sonic actually be like? And I even remember, what was that game? It was like, Spyro the Dragon, that little purple dragon on the PlayStation. And I remember running around with him, and like I wasn't really necessarily playing the game. Like I was just thinking, what would Sonic be like? And I was kind of running as fast as I could and looping in circles and doing all these kind of motions. It was all just like mental prep, I suppose, for Sonic.
It was mental, so that just running around in circles.
Actually, people were looking at me being like, what on earth are you doing? In my head there was a lot more going on.
No, but same. It's like, the bit on Mario 64, if you do just run around and he speeds up and then like smoke starts coming out his bum, doesn't it, or something, and he sort of really like swings forward. The fastest Mario goes is the sort of base level speed for Sonic, and it's like, you just think they really did do something extra with it. But we mentioned when we were talking about Burning Rangers, obviously Sonic Team had built the model and sort of like been working out 3D for Burning Rangers as well, and that then development overlapped. So you got into the sort of latter part of Burning Rangers development, and Sonic Adventure had started to work. And although I don't think there were many, I think there were some crossover devs, but you know, they were obviously speaking. You can feel a bit of the mechanics in Sonic Adventure. Just there's something about the way the movement works and the way the camera behaves as you start to move and stuff. It is there, isn't it?
The camera.
Yeah. But
Yeah. I don't want to be one of those guys jumping in on it, but it did make it hard work. And actually, I guess in a way, like some of the parts of Burning Rangers were made a little bit more tricky because of the camera, wasn't it? It's they really needed that second analog stick on the Dreamcast controller.
They really needed it in Burning Rangers. The thing was, we were saying in Burning Rangers that where they struggled was where you're in a tight, confined space and it wouldn't spin. And you know, you were like, well, the camera's determined to look at me. I want to turn it round and look outwards, and it wouldn't let me do it. And Sonic Adventure does do that exact same thing. You know, when you're running, it's perfectly fine. But when you're doing like the ice cap level or something, where you're in a more enclosed space and you kind of want to look around, it just it won't. Not only will it not spin naturally, it won't let you spin the camera around, and you're like,
it battles you, doesn't it? A little bit,
it really battles you. I read this thing with your man Iizuka, where he was saying they were wrestling with how they can make the camera work, and you give them credit as well, because they were trying to work out how 3D cameras work, like everyone was.
Yeah,
and they were trying to do it
been tough.
Crazy speed that they were dealing with.
Yeah.
And he said this idea of, he said, well, in Sonic 2, you can just hold right and you just go. You know, you just hold, literally you just hold down right and you'll get to the end of the level. And he had this idea, and he said it in a few interviews where he was like, what about if I just made it so if you just hold up or like forwards, but just press up on Sonic, that he would just go. If I fix the camera so it's always like showing you where you're going to go, and it's not necessarily following Sonic, but it's like looking around corners, and it is adjusting itself ready so that you can just hold forwards. And I thought, that is exactly how Sonic plays. It feels a little bit on rails because that's what the camera's doing. And obviously in some bits it's massively on rails, but it's like, I think they were right. That's the only way you could do the camera.
Yeah, I mean, like, you couldn't, like, you know, say when you're running into the level, like if you're going around a loop, you can't have the camera really. You know, it would lose all, like, you know, all feel of running around the loop, wouldn't it? So when the camera kind of like backs out, so you can see yourself running around the loop and then going a bit further, doing the second one and stuff like that. I mean, that surely is the best way to have done that. I think. Yeah.
And it's
I reckon
it is for the speed levels. I think they got it right. You know, there's a couple of awkward bits where you're going so fast you can't see the track's about to end. You fly off the edge, and it like drives you a bit nuts. And it's sort of, it's not really the camera; it's just the speed, I guess, isn't it? But in the slower levels, like I'll go up to Ice Cap because that's the classic one where it's more like a Mario. It's really like a Mario level actually, and it's like kind of, and it's a lot slower and it's more kind of platformy.
Yeah,
the camera does really start to bug you on that, because it's like you need to look around and it does keep getting caught in weird angles and stuff. So, you know, I think they did a good job in the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it was such an early kind of like crack of the whip with it all, wasn't it, and stuff. And like we were saying, like Sonic is such a different character to kind of have in that kind of environment than what anyone had really kind of done before, I suppose. And it's like, there were going to be teething problems. I will say, like, I did have a lot of deaths because of the camera, but I was willing to forgive them because of like that kind of stuff.
Well, one really good thing is the load speed, like get the reset back to the level after you die is pretty damn good. It's like, you know, obviously there's a bit where you're falling, and that's a bit annoying, but it's like then when the level wants to restart, you're straight back into it. And I think that is really good, you know, like it was obviously
I appreciated that.
again, back in the day, that was really new to us. I remember on Soul Calibur it doing it, and kind of like, you know, the round finishes, the next one starts, and it's like that on Sonic Adventure, you know, you go into the next bit, you can tell that it's just loaded the next stage, like, you know, so there's bits where you go around the corner and it will go through a door and then it loads the next stage, and you could tell it's done that, but it's also done it basically instantly, and you're like, yeah, that's good. And so I appreciate how fast
I
they
think
back.
didn't they actually get more RAM like in the Dreamcast or something like that
Yeah.
by pitching like Sonic Adventure and what they wanted to do, and like, you know, stuff like that loading and things like that because of it.
Yeah, they were saying, I think when they started designing and building Sonic Adventure, the Dreamcast was like 20 or 30% designed. You know, the Dreamcast didn't exist. They started making Sonic Adventure with no hardware to do it.
Right.
I think even up to launch, the Dreamcast wasn't finished when they were kind of reaching their kind of playable like alpha stage of the game.
I think it was literally weeks beforehand that it was finished like or something, wasn't it?
It is nuts how often you hear these stories. No, I don't think it's just with Sega actually. Like obviously we talked about that same thing with Panzer Dragoon, and it was like the guy didn't have a Saturn to work on, and that helped the game design and stuff. In this case it helped because they, like you said, they were able to say, we're going to need more RAM in that Dreamcast to make this stuff work.
Yeah.
And
actually, you know what, speaking of go on.
No, you go on.
I was just going to say, speaking of Panzer Dragoon, did you get the nod to it in the kind of plane sections with the dragging the reticle kind of thing across the enemies and all that sort of stuff?
It felt quite instinctive, didn't it? Like going straight into it. Yeah.
I mean, I usually have my controls inverted, and I didn't know if I could change that. So that was like a little bit messing with me, but it was pretty cool. It was like, and I think it was like meant to be like a nod, wasn't it, to Panzer Dragoon, as far as I understand.
Yeah, and it worked, and it did feel very much like it, because obviously, like Panzer Dragoon, I mean, you know, you fly around Robotnik's ship and stuff in the same way you fly around the Imperial cruisers and stuff. Wait, am I confusing it with Star Wars? You know what I mean? Whatever they're called. Empire? I don't even know what the bad guys are called in Panzer Dragoon.
Baddies.
The bad.
The baddies. Yeah.
The bad dudes. The two crude dudes. One thing I picked up on, like reading about this, was the role of Takashi Iizuka. And, you know, you think Sonic and you think Yuji Naka. Even like certainly into Sonic Adventure, I still think Yuji Naka, you know, this thing we were talking about, this leaflet promoting the game, he's still the face of Sonic and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think this was the one where Iizuka took the reins and effectively.
Yeah.
So we were talking before, he's now really the franchise producer for Sonic. Like, you know,
he's the Sonic dude.
He's the Sonic dude, and it's you know, it's not the movies, like the, you know, recent movies, Frontiers, Generations, Colors, and all the sort of modern era Sonic games. You know, that's not really Yuji Naka. The series producer is this guy Takashi Iizuka, and it's another fascinating Sega story. Because we're saying I think he joined Sega in something like 93 or something. Basically, I think he joined at the point they were launching Sonic 2. And I read this interview and he was saying, you know, I did this like 2-week training course or something, and then they had me straight into designing my own game. And I can't remember the name of the game, but it's on the Mega Drive Mini 2, like this thing he did.
Is it?
And he said, I've worked at Sega for like 2 weeks, and then they give you a month where you design a game. So I designed a game, it took me a month, and that's on, and I'm like, okay, so you're pretty good.
Oh, really?
And then he works on Golden Axe 3 and does some like design stuff for it or planning stuff for it or anything. And he'd been there like a year when they asked him to go to America and work on Sonic 3. So he's like this really new recruit. So he goes to America, works on Sonic 3, obviously then gets ingratiated with Yuji Naka and the team. And then he comes back, and then he works with Naoto Oshima and Yuji Naka to do Knights. And then so when they then moved on to Sonic Adventure, by that point he'd kind of like risen up the ranks, and he becomes the producer for Sonic Adventure. And
Oh, right.
You know,
he's the man now.
He's the man. Yeah, and it's so there's just so many of these stories in Sega where you're like, I think it's something like in 91, 92, they just had this massive influx. Like they literally hired 500 developers or something, and in this really short period of time, and he's one of them. So are so many of these people. You know, they got the dude we were talking about for Panzer Dragoon, like some of the AM staff that would go on to design our favourite game stuff. They also became this massive influx. So he just comes in, he sort of lands. He was one of like 5 Japanese developers or something that got picked to go to America to do the Sega Technical Institute and like work there on Sonic 3. And it's like, yeah, this is a crazy story. So in just a few years, because 93 to 96, 97, when they started this design in this game, you know, he's been there 4 years, and then he's the producer of Sonic Adventure. So anyway,
that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, considering how big Sonic is, that's quite a step, isn't it? Like, you know, in such a small amount of time. I mean, Sonic is still such a draw now, isn't it? It's like, it's crazy with all these movies and the games and everything. Like,
and I think a lot of that is down to this guy. Like I say, I think he's now considered the series producer, and I forget his other title. I think he's something like the creative COO of Sega or something now. He's like got some other like corporate title, but I think all this sort of flourishing of the series and the kind of probably, you know, I'm not a massive fan of the like Colors era, and a bit until it kind of gets onto the 360, I kind of was hit and miss on it. But then Generations onwards, I'm like,
Generations was really good. That gave me hype, and like, certain elements of that. It was almost like what I was kind of waiting for. I mean, even Sonic Unleashed, the Sonic sections, like they were hype. It was like, you know, I mean, I kind of had mentally prepared myself for the werehog thing, but I didn't realize quite how testing that would actually be. Even like, you know, going in knowing what everyone was saying about it, it was still a bit. I mean, it did finish my playthrough of it. It was like I could take it in bursts, like, you know, because you kind of start out like, the first level's like only 5 minutes, and then it gets to 10 minutes, 15, and then kind of when you're hitting up the kind of half an hour levels of the werehog, it's like, mate, no, I'm out.
Dial me out. So maybe that aside, but he's done a good job, I think, developing the series. I think you look at kind of where it's ended up now, that he did get it into the movies, and it is now back to being a kind of franchise with as much cultural importance as Sonic 1 and 2 did, like in the 90s. You know, I think that's him. And it kind of, I think the point being, it kind of starts here, because he'd worked on Sonic 3 and he'd worked on Knights, but then it's here in Sonic Adventure where he kind of took the helm and he was the producer, and this is where that all begins. So, you know, important for him and important for Sonic, and makes this game important as well. So, one of the things we said about before was obviously, so they did have this very tight window. I think they started off with something like 20 people working on Sonic Adventure. By the end, it was like 120, and they really had to bust a gut to get it in. We were talking before, that Japanese version had its flaws, didn't it? So the original launch for Japanese, the one you've got, in fact.
So because I did notice when I got the PAL version that it was it wasn't significantly different, like to my eyes, but I did notice like some of the things that they got done to try and improve it. So like, is it Windy Valley, the second one you do as Sonic? It's you know, I mean, like when you kind of going on those platforms that's looping out just through the sky, and it's like stretching pretty far off. The kind of pop in was quite noticeable, but in the PAL version they kind of put like a little bit of a fade in effect on it, so it would kind of fade in. So like that was one of the things that I remember noticing, like, as a difference. I mean, it was just kind of like very small things. Like I heard that like there's certain bugs in it and things like that they had addressed and stuff, but I didn't really encounter too many that I remember at the time.
I think it was just sort of bits like messiness was the kind of the way
they tidied it up a little bit. I mean, the only real other thing that I remember noticing was on the title screen on the PAL version. It's kind of got like a ripple effect, like as if a drop had fallen into the middle, and it kind of goes out in a circle. And I was sort of thinking like, maybe not necessary, but it's a nice touch, because like I thought just the static screen in the Japanese one was fine. I never really looked at it and thought like I need more motion on that man. But,
well, that's why you're not serious producer for the Sonic franchise. You know,
they
it's
treated
these things.
us.
Yeah,
They treated us.
Okay, because I think the story goes, it's like Iizuka. They finished it off for the Japanese launch, and then he took a team to America, like so he went back to America because they'd spent a few years doing Nights and then Sonic Adventure so there in Japan, and he took a team back to America. They spent 6 months, like sort of touching it up for the American release of Sonic Adventure, and then that's obviously then the same version we got for PAL, and then they released it in Japan again, or re-released it, but called it Sonic Adventure International, didn't they? And it's like which
because I suppose I mean, obviously the Western version had to have the dub and everything like that on it too, but I mean we did get it significantly later than Japan, didn't we? I suppose
it was like a year, wasn't it? So
it was still back in those days when we were getting the shaft over here with the year wait on when Japan was getting stuff. So I hated that. That's why I was like, I'm getting a Dreamcast on import. I'm not putting up with it this time, especially because like I remember when I really decided to get my Dreamcast was every month in Sega Saturn magazine the price was dropping more and more, and then they'd announced that the Dreamcast PAL version was supposed to be like 200 quid, and then this one month getting the Japanese one like on import was less than 200 quid already. It was like 100, I think it got to like 180 or something, and I was just like, what am I even waiting for? Like that's when I ordered it. But like it was just awesome having that little thing turn up. Like I remember the hum of the machine. I used to say that's the sound of 3 million polygons ticking over nicely.
It's weird though. I don't really remember playing it, like playing your Japanese import Dreamcast. And I would have still been around. You know, I didn't go to university till the year later. I don't think,
yeah. No, I mean, like I took it to your house like that same day. So obviously, I'm glad it wasn't wasted on you.
Maybe I was just like, so blown away, I just couldn't take it in.
Well, no, I do have memories of that day. Like I remember we set it up in your living room on your TV and stuff. And one of the things you were saying, it was like it's the clarity of the image that's like so impressive. You were saying like because of the resolution and stuff like that, everything looks so clear. And I remember we were like looking at the controller of the Dreamcast and like putting VMUs in it. And your sister was in the room and she was like looking at us like what we were doing. And she was like, and we were like, this is so cool. And you were like, yeah, this is cool. And she kind of chimed in like, yeah, that is cool. Whatever it is. I always remember that.
I don't know whether I should be seriously worried about my mental health. I can't remember that. Isn't that bad?
Oh man,
that's like such an important moment. What's going on with my brain?
With my diminishing memory, it's not something I can.
One thread though is in that little recreation of what I said at the time, I still sound like a douchebag, so nothing changes there.
Well, what a surprise! Colour me shocked. Anyway.
I think something we'll go there then is think at the time and now, how do you rate it? You know, as gameplay, because it did loads of these impressive things, technically brilliant, massively impressive, a huge leap forward technically, visually and all of that stuff, but they did hugely change the gameplay. As both of us massive fans of like original 2D Sonic, and this was something completely different. So give me two things. How do you remember feeling about it at the time, and how do you feel about it playing again now?
Well, at the time I kind of, even though it was 3D, I was kind of still treating it like the way I always treated Sonic. Like, you know, I would have the levels and I would try and speed run them and everything. And it was the same kind of thing for me. It wasn't like a massive departure in, I suppose, how I was approaching the game. But like, I think one of the things that I got this time was like, I suppose I was so familiar with the early levels that I kind of almost forgot about the later levels, like the bigger, more expansive levels. And I had so much fun playing them this time. It was just like they were almost like new to me. I got to the end boss and I couldn't remember it because it's like been so long since I played it, because I would like just I would know like the early stages like just from speed running it. And when I think of Sonic Adventure, I have those levels in my head, and these other levels have kind of just been like lost to time in my mind. Like replaying them again, it was fresh to me again. But the thing was, I just found it so fun, even with the camera problems and all that sort of stuff. I just really enjoyed it, and it gave me the hype. And by the end of the game, it was like, right, I'm on to Tails now, I'm on to Knuckle. I wanted to play through them all. Unfortunately, I ran out of time because you can actually unlock, like, if you beat all of them. I can't remember if you have to get like a particular grade, because you get graded on the stages. But there is a true ending where you become Super Sonic and you fight like Chaos in his final form and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had so much fun. Yeah. Like I do remember doing it back in the day, but that was something that had kind of gotten forgotten in my mind. But
that makes it feel better that you could forget stuff. Since I can't remember you sitting in my front room. I think I never completed it with the other characters. I don't really remember playing very much at all in the other character stages, and it was one of the games I got right at the start of getting my Dreamcast, and I do remember really enjoying the Sonic stages, but also kind of niggly bits with maybe it was like the bits in between, and so I always I liked it, but sounds really harsh, but it kind of put me off the other games that then came. Sonic Adventure 2 and then the other the other ones I never had a massive amount of interest for, and I don't really know why, because I did enjoy Sonic Adventure, but I didn't adore it or love it in the way I'd really loved Sonic 2, Sonic 3. I think playing it now, I definitely enjoyed it more. Like I was the early stages, I thought they're okay. Like the first stage, I don't massively love, and I started playing it a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a bit linear, isn't it? It's a bit like and then Windy Valley,
good
I
for
was
stocking your lives up.
Yeah, good for stocking lives up.
That's your live stocking up level, isn't it? You get like loads. Yeah. Just keep running it till you.
Windy Valley, I was kind of thinking, this alright, it's sort of fun, but I still feel like I'm kind of on rails. And then weirdly, it was like the variety of then doing, again, I don't know how you're meant to pronounce it, Cassinopolis,
yeah,
whatever. Doing that, and then Ice Cap, which are like completely different levels. They're not really speed levels, and I was thinking, okay, this is like a bit intriguing. And then when I got back onto when I did Speed Highway and then the Red Mountain, I was like, oh man, these are so good. Like, yeah,
really, so much fun.
Because I thought
I just had a blast with them.
Because again, like I sort of remember the early stages, like you were saying, and maybe because we played those like over and over, like picking up the game and stuff, and but that really was the exact thing that Iizuka said. That first stage. You remember the bit where the whale's smashing up the thing behind you?
Yeah, iconic that is. That's a legendary kind of bit.
You don't have any choice but to just press forward or backwards or whatever it is.
You can slightly move him sideways, like very, very
and
slightly.
You can miss some of the boosts and fall into the ocean, I remember. Because
you're right, actually, yeah.
So you can screw it up, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the bit I remember. And coming back to it and playing it, I was like, oh man, actually, these are amazing. Because Speed Highway is just the perfect go fast in a straight line track, and obviously then it does the bits down the side of the building and stuff, and it's quite clever.
Yeah,
but it's mainly just go fast forwards. But that Red Mountain track, of course, I just was thinking, because that does loads of bits. It's kind of like it does some sort of almost platformy bits. It does some speed bits. It does some like rockets and stuff. And it's very linear. You can't really kind of go wrong, but it feels like you're doing a platform game at super high speed. Like it's really tightly packed. And I thought, Yeah, I played a few of those. Played those 2 levels, and I was thinking, man, I think I've enjoying it more now. I think I've undervalued how good those level designs really were. Yeah, and I like the other characters on it. I know I don't like them anywhere near as much as Sonic. Like Tails is quite cool because you can do similar sort of speedy things, but it's like
I mean, like his level is like, you know, you're kind of going over the same. His story is like you're going over the same kind of levels, really, aren't you? But they've changed the dynamic where, I mean, he can fly, but you're just in this race to the end, and it's kind of, you know, Sonic, you can tell that's definitely the main event. It's like that's the true game, like, and all these other bits are kind of like just a bit secondary, and they're trying to make it work with what they got. But I mean, like I say, it's still good, but like Sonic is definitely the bit where it's at, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, let's ask the classic question then. Would you still play it now?
You know what? I think that one of the reasons that I couldn't remember a lot of the later levels is because of how much time has kind of like passed since I last really got stuck into the game. But just playing it now just makes me think why, and it's like, I just want to now get really stuck into it again and like do all the other characters stages as well and that. And actually I've got a really annoying, I knocked my Dreamcast on my Japanese copy and it put a little ring on the disc, so it gets stuck at a certain point. I need to get that buffed so that it can I can play that version and try and fight my way through in Japanese. But I'm totally hyped for it, and I'm well up for playing more of it. So yes, I would play it again. What about you? How do you feel?
Yeah, same. Really similar to that, actually, because like I was sort of saying, I think I've enjoyed it more playing it today than I did back in the day.
Agree.
And it's like I don't think it's appreciation of the level design, maybe. I just think it was a really fun game, and maybe I just didn't spend enough time kind of getting into the later stages, just like you were saying. And I really feel like and this is not like me, because I'm not a massive speedrunner, but because I'm not a massive replayer. You know, I find I generally can't be asked to replay levels and like perfect my time, which is a big thing for Sonic games. But I feel really inclined to go and replay some of those levels. And especially, like, you know, I was playing Speed Highway and I kept hitting walls, or like, you know, I couldn't get it perfect because I just, you know, I played it through maybe like sort of 5 or 6 times, and I couldn't get it perfect. And I feel like I really want to, like, and that's great. I never really felt that back in the day. I don't remember playing that back in the day. I just
do it. Get in there.
So it's a real win for Book Club, I think, because it's got us playing it again, and I definitely found something else that I didn't kind of get out of it the first time. And it's almost like now the dust has settled, you can really fix your eyes, you know, because there was so much hype being that early Dreamcast game was such a showpiece for the graphics, and now these days I suppose we're coming to it and just looking at it for what it really is, and it's just really cool just to see that it is a solid game underneath it all and everything. It's just brilliant. And actually, I sort of maybe feel like more of a dig, but just thinking to some of the Sonic Frontiers levels, you know, some of the speed stages on Sonic Frontiers, and I think these levels feel much more accomplished than those. Those do feel like, you know, I've read it elsewhere, you know, those run and jump games on mobiles where you're literally just running forwards and you just have to jump. Sonic Frontiers, some of the stages on that just really feel like that. They're so on rails linear, and it's kind of there is a set path to make it fun. There's too much of the grinding and looping bits and stuff. These feel way better, and I haven't played I haven't completed Sonic Frontiers, so I probably didn't. So I'm sure the levels like Sonic Adventure probably get better and better as you go deeper into it, so I won't push that too far. But the positive I'm trying to get to is, considering it was the first stab they were having at this, it's amazing how good those levels were, and like they really hold up compared to modern 3D Sonic speed stages. In my opinion.
No, I know what you mean. Actually, what you're saying. I mean, even the last few 3D Sonic games that I actually played, I can totally get what you mean. It's like the Sonic Adventure levels feel very different to, you know, those more modern ones that do feel a lot like those mobile kind of versions of Sonic.
Yeah,
I can definitely get what you mean with that. Yeah.
Well, good levels of hype.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed talking about it. I massively enjoyed playing it, and and you know, well done to thank you Book Club for having us. I know we invented you, but you know,
Yes.
thank you for inviting us on and doing this. Now, we've had a few chats about memory in this podcast. Yours has failed, mine's failed. I got one final test for you. What are we playing next? Can you remember?
Oh man,
Because this is confusing.
Well, actually,
because in the
thankfully-
recording schedule, we've got a few games coming before the next book club. Can you remember what the next book club's going to be?
I can remember the next book club, but only because I asked you beforehand. what
Did
the
you write
next
it
book
down?
club was, and I've written it down at the top of my paper here. Oh, I've probably blown it actually because I held up my little picture of Sonic and it's written right next to it.
Oh, I didn't click
But-
it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who did not see that, the next game we are playing, and it's actually quite an interesting one because it's a fan translation version that we're going to be playing of Police Noughts. So the
excellent.
kind of it's not like the sequel to Snatcher, but it's like, you know, in the same vein as Snatcher, isn't it? So
Yeah, very much.
so we're moving on to the Sega Saturn, of course, version of Police Noughts. Hideo Kojima, Konami when they were actually good. So yeah, that's going to be a really exciting one.
I'm really excited to play it because I've picked it up a few times. We've got a few hours in each time, and I've not completed it. You know, I've not really got very far in it, to be honest, because you can do quite a lot of pootling around in Snatcher and Police Noughts. You know, and a few hours is not a lot of plot. Really, it's just messing around.
Right.
So I'm really excited to get into it, and I think. I think it's only recently that we've picked it up because I think I only managed to get hold of it. I think I got an Etsy burned disc version of the fan translation. I've now got it on the Fenrir, so I've not got a long history with it. It's more kind of looking on from afar, thinking, oh, it exists. I wonder what it's like, and now we can finally get our laughing gear around it. Yes,
Indeed, yes, I'm looking forward to it because the hype for it is embedded in my head because when I first saw it, it was pitched as Snatcher 2 in CBG in the news article, but it is not. But I am looking forward to playing it because I've never beaten it either. So I've probably only gotten a few hours into it. So shame on me. Let's put
shame
that
on
right.
us, terrible humans that we are. And for those of you thousands, legions of avid followers of the book club, just to say that will be in a month. So up till now we've been doing it fortnightly, and that one will be in a month's time from now. So you know, don't think we've forgotten about it, but we just a little bit of extra time to play it, and we're thinking probably that'll be the schedule for book clubs. You know, do it once.
We
a
need
month
to change
from
the intro. We say we need to change the intro.
Oh geez, I better get edited. Although saying that, we probably still play it for that long, so maybe it's. I'm trying to think of a way to be lazy, basically, and say, could we just not go?
We're not skipping out videos, by the way. There's still going to be content. We're not just going to I
No, I think our extra content.
It's because we got other ideas. So.
We're just overflowing with ideas, my man. So,
man.
And in fact,
incredible.
I won't mention them here because although I've got written on the page now what's going to be in those weeks in between now and the next book club, we might sort of fiddle with the running order, but let's just say they're cracking games, and so there's plenty of content, plenty of content weekly, but book club.
So make sure you like and subscribe, etc., etc., etc.
You're so smooth. I'm just gonna take that clip and put that out on socials because that's all people need to know about us is you doing that. Nice. I'm happy.
So we're about there, are we?
Yeah,
we didn't talk about Chow Garden, but that's okay. The Tamagotchi thing. I was going to say about the Knights pinball with the 3D bit as well, but we didn't get there earlier. I should have put that into my Air Knights video. But anyway,
we'll come back to maybe at the start of the Police Nuts video. We can have a bit going. Hey, let's talk about Chow,
Yeah.
like Chow's and,
But
and the Knights.
Exactly,
pinball
but it
bit.
just goes to show the depth and the wealth of things available that in Sonic Adventure. So go and play it, people.
And I
But-
would say, if sorry, I know you're about to do your thing. I was going to say, I would talk about those, but it's midnight, folks. So I'm gonna park it there. But they're both very good features. Is that enough?
They are very good, very good. But with all that being said, well, this has been great.
I like the fingers on the ears. That was beautiful.